you have to ask the question, what rational country would literally throw away, or I guess metaphorically, throw away the genius of their children just because of their skin color? What rational country does that? What politician who loves their country would knowingly promote racial and religious hatred? And yet, this is the insanity into which the Republican Party has descended. The latest example is Lauren Boebert calling Ilhan Omar a terrorist, and then calling up, refusing to apologize, and demanding that Ilhan Omar go before the American people and apologize for something. For America's entire history, our politics have turned on issues of race. This goes back to literally the founding of our republic. And there have always been politicians who have used race as basically a political weapon. And what I find fascinating right now is in our mainstream media, open today's paper, Washington Post, New York Times, whatever it may be, and you will find lots of articles about how, look at this, through the gerrymandering, the Republicans no longer even have to answer to their voters. We're going to see Republicans disproportionately take control of North Carolina and Texas and Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin, and blah, blah, blah. It's all this horse race stuff and what that's going to mean for Republican politicians, but nobody is talking about why Republicans are doing what they're doing. Why? There's an almost total lack of issue-based analysis. And yet, the last time white people in America, which is the majority of Americans, I think we're down to around 70% now, but the last time white people in America voted more than 50% for a Democrat for president was 1964, Lyndon Johnson. But the Democrats are clear about issues. They're working to expand Medicare for all seniors, dental, vision, and hearing. They want to expand Medicaid for all low-income working people. And the word all is the important one here. Unemployment insurance to save all families when the economy hiccups. A cleaner environment for everybody. Good-paying union jobs for all workers. A $15 minimum wage for all working people. Free or low-cost college and trade school for everybody. Free universal pre-K for all children. Paid sick leave and family leave for all workers. Less expensive prescription drugs for everyone. Rebuilding our nation's infrastructure so we can all use it. Now, the Republicans have literally opposed every single one of those things that I just mentioned. The one small exception to that would be the so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill, which has several $100 billion of corporate subsidies in it, which was the price that Republicans demanded to have a handful of them sign off on it. But what are Republicans promising their mostly white voters? This is what they're running on. They're going to stop teaching the history of black and native people in schools. They're going to build a wall on our southern border to stop brown people from entering. They want to change voting laws to cut back on hours and voting locations in black neighborhoods, making for multi-hour waits to vote. They want to push school choice so white families can send their kids to all-white schools. They want to put in more tax cuts for the 99% white billionaires and the 90.1% white male-run giant corporations. They want to defend white supremacy militias, or at least promise to ignore their threats and crimes. They want to loosen gun laws so we'll have more and deadlier weapons of war on our streets. They want to reduce criminal penalties for injuring or killing protesters with cars. They want to privatize Social Security and Medicare so their bankster donors can scam us and suck retirees dry. And they attack any programs that push America toward racial equality of opportunity, income, or wealth as so-called anti-white discrimination. This is the Republican Party's agenda. This is what they are selling America. In that, you find the answer to the question, why are Republicans choosing the path they're on? Well, because they believe pandering to racists and inflaming racism, homophobia, religious intolerance will win them elections. This started in a big way for the GOP in 1968 with Richard Nixon's Southern strategy, as you well know. And they've now branded the Republican Party with things that, frankly, used to be Democratic brands prior to 68. You know, the blue-collar worker, the rural hunter, the country music crowd, NASCAR, wrestling fans. I was a country western DJ in the late 60s. I think it was 1967, 68. It must have been 67. I was 16. And Democrats loved country western music. Republicans, not so much, because back then the Republicans were kind of the party of the wealthy. They were the party of the you know, kind of the Main Street Republicans, you know, the small businesses, but that was the Republican brand. But now they've appropriated the whole thing. None of those things really should be political, though. You know, this is just America. Millions of Democrats like country music and believe guns and think we can have a multiracial society, a multi-ethnic, a multi-religious society. And in fact, it'll make us stronger. I mean, what rational country, after all, would intentionally block or throw away the talent and genius of an entire generation of young people who could change the world for the better just because of their skin pigment? Citibank published a report in 2020. This was last year. You know, the big bank, Citibank. And in that report, they looked at the period, the last 10 years, 20 years, 2000 through 2020. And they showed that all of America lost $16 trillion in gross domestic product because of discriminatory lending practices, kneecapping entrepreneurs in black neighborhoods. That was about $13 trillion. Discriminatory hiring and other business practices cut black wages by $2.7 trillion, and hundreds of billions of dollars were lost to housing and education discrimination. This is really one of the biggest challenges America has faced since the Civil War, is this issue of not just the issue of race, but the issue of one of our two major political parties wrapping themselves in racism and Islamophobia and you know, and also anti-Semitism. Democrats have worked for almost a century to produce and maintain a strong middle class so people can reach their greatest potential and raise their families without constant economic anxiety. The Republican Party? No, they've been, you know, pushing policies of religious and racial separation and oligarchy. And, you know, their only consequential policy, I mean, literally the only serious major piece of legislation that was passed during the 4 years of the Trump administration was a $2 trillion tax cut for rich people and corporations that over 10 years is going to be $9 trillion. Oh, but we can't pass a $2.5 trillion bill that will expand Medicare. Oh, we can't afford to do that. I mean, you've got white supremacists roaming the streets with weapons of war, terrorizing shoppers. This happened in Long Island a couple days ago. You had a white supremacist travel to El Paso and murder 22 people after writing, "This attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas," using language that Donald Trump had used repeatedly. Invasion. Tucker Carlson, it's the white replacement theory. Another white supremacist murdered 9 black people at the Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, while shouting white racist rhetoric. The list of unarmed black people murdered by police is so long, I couldn't list it here. It's got its own wiki page on Wikipedia. You know, like we were discussing greed yesterday. Greed is never going to go away. Racism is never going to go away. But both can be weakened through, well, racism specifically in this case, can be weakened through integration and education. It can be controlled by the force of law. And it can be removed from our public square by our nation agreeing to shame racists and white supremacists, people like Lauren Boebert. When we've tried these tools, they've been quite effective. Look at our military. Yes, they still have a ways to go. Yes, there are still problems, racial problems in our military, but they are light years ahead of much of the rest of America. The last thing we should ever have is a political party using race like this as a weapon, as a political weapon. We have the opportunity to show the world that it is possible for people of different races and religions to work together and to live together in harmony and peace and make a better nation and a better world. But that's not going to happen as long as the GOP keeps exploiting racial and religious hatred for fundraising and naked political purposes.